Welcome back to the show, Namibia. Now, from the 3rd to the 5th of September, Windhoek will host, that is the African Widows Conference, yes, at the Mövenpick Hotel, bringing together, that is, over 500 delegates from 21 countries. And this includes policymakers, development partners, legal experts, and of course, civil society leaders. Now, the summit is, the conference will be themed Widowhood in Africa, building a sustainable culture. This will focus on the multi-dimensional challenges, that widows face, legal, economic, health, housing, and education issues, and will mark, that is, the launch of the Pan-African Widows Union, a continental platform that will unify as well as amplify the voices of widows. So joining us here this morning to discuss this very historic event and the transformative initiatives ahead are, that is, Hope Nwakwesi, who is the founder and the president of the Pan-African Widows Initiative, as well as Jane Kahunga, who is the founder of the Kuhanga Widows Association. Ladies, a very, very good morning to you and welcome to the show. How are you?
Good morning.
Good morning.
You're well? Yeah?
Very, very well.
Good, great stuff. I'm going to start off with you, Madam Nwakwesi. Maybe you can start and tell the Namibian audience right now, what inspired the establishment of the Pan-African Widows Initiative, and also, what gap did you see in order to address some of the challenges that widows face today?
Yeah, first of all, I'm a widow, so I worked from my experience. So after years of 20 years after widowhood, I went through everything you can think about in terms of widowhood culture in Africa. And by the time I came out from the dark space and survived, one of the things I said to myself, I'm going to use my voice and to begin to talk about it. And, being a teacher and educational provider, I knew the importance of information, bringing information out and education. So 22 years after, I set up a foundation and I started mentoring, it started unplanned. When people say, come, go and talk to this person, you just lost the husband. You motivate them. You motivated me. You are the one that, just how it all started.
Yeah.
Then I now said, okay, one of these days, my lawyer was even the one. My lawyer then said to me, I've known you, you've been doing this, make it official. So he was like, what do you mean by official? I was like, what do you mean by official? He said, open an NGO. Believe you me, between 1983 to 2016, when this was happening, I can't remember coming across, or, maybe I must have read it, but because it wasn't something that was functional in my life, I didn't pay it. So when he now said it, I said, NGO. And I remember my secondary school, non-governmental organization. I said, oh, wow, okay, that's it. He said, okay, let him register. And he took the paper, registered it for me, and brought it. The funny thing, he didn't ask me for money.
Yeah.
And when he brought it, he now asked me for money. I said, for what?
Yeah.
He said, for registering it. And I was like, I should have shared this money to 1 or 2, 3, 4 widows. It would be more important. What am I going to do with this piece of paper? But I always say thank you to him, because maybe by now I will just continue to do something without structure. So then I started. 7 years into it, I prepared the Nigerian Widows Protection Bill, which I submitted, the Widows Database. I began the summits. I had the summit, Widow Summit in Nigeria, where we called the policymakers and so on. Then 2020, thanks to COVID, they always say that everything that has advantage has a disadvantage, or everything that has a disadvantage has an advantage. So COVID was something that was quite traumatic, but it brought some good things, because it was in 2020, because we couldn't have the physical gathering and so on, so we now had the online. So and then we were able to have different people, widows from across the continent, policymakers, and I realized that the issue is the same. What is the same issue? This issue is about cultural manipulation and government neglect. And I sat back in my space. I said, all of us have been doing charity. What are the structures, really? Every space you go, you find out. I went to the bank at a certain point. I wanted to take a loan for business. And it got to the point they realized I'm a widow. It went from 360 back to. So, and immediately, we set up, about 7 of us, we set up a WhatsApp and began to talk about it. Our problems are the same. It's no longer, sustainable. It can never be universal. The current practice of dealing with widows, it's time for us to bring our voice together and let's talk to the government. What are the actions that's supposed to, and that's where, I mean, my first presentation in last year's summit was that 5-dimensional problem, which is legal, education, housing, finance, and health. So, I mean, when you look at it, everybody is talking about cultural rights, land rights, all this, very excellent. But I've realized from within that 10 years that even when you pass the law, it is not implemented into the society. Because most of the time it becomes a political action, they put it in the file. Then when it's passed, it's going to take time, you know, to transmit it, to people to learn, to reorient themselves. It's going to take. In the meantime, now let's shift the narrative. Let's shift the narrative. What are the functional policy that widows can be included when they are making a financial policy, health policy, education policy, and so on. And that's where we now came together and say, it's time to bring the voice. Let's continue to do the charity in the individual levels, but let's look at bringing the government, the African Union, the regional chapters. Widows should be included in the discussion, defined. The idea of lumping widows into women, they are lost in the law of average. Because our culture in most part of the Africa does not present women in widowhood in a good state. And for that, consciously and subconsciously, they are excluded in discussion and action.
Thank you very, very much for that introduction. I think that's a good way to start this conversation. Madam Kahunga, you are the founder of the Kuhanga Widows Association, right? I think maybe if you can give us a background on the association, you know, its mandate, I think it would be a great place for us to start. And also, I want to ask, you know, what would you say are some of the biggest challenges that widows actually face in the country? But at the same time, given bodies such as what we just discussed now, you know, what opportunities have, you know, arisen in the last, let's say, 10 years, if we can say?
Yeah, thank you, and good morning to all the viewers listening out there. Our association that we have established is very young, it's in its infancy stage, nearly 2 years. Going to 3 years. We just came together again also during the COVID period. We started as a WhatsApp group, and then we see that all the challenges are really the same. We started praying for each other, giving each other advice, and then as we were progressing, we say time is now that we start something like this, because we need to become the voice of the voiceless. And then that is where now we then register formally a body here in Namibia, shortened as Kuhanga, with the objective of trying to advocate for the rights of the widows in Namibia, the socio-economic empowerment, and also to advocate for laws that violates their rights, and also the discriminations that is in most cases posed against them, the widows. So with those, we then started this association. So the challenges are quite common if you listen across the continent. But from us also here, one of the very first challenging one is the bureaucratic delays in the administration process of estate distribution. It takes quite a lot of process, and in the process, the people are really losing whatever they have, and then also the stigma, the discrimination, and also the financial instability that now after the one better half passed on, that you now need to survive on your own. So all this led to the establishment of this association, and there's quite a number of them. And also from the 5 legal dimensions that were said, again, similarly, that applies here in Namibia.
Thank you so much for your contribution. I'd like to talk about the theme, widowhood in Africa, building a sustainable culture. How important is this theme? How do you also plan to translate this theme into actionable and tangible programs?
Yeah, thank you so much. You know, like we said, we have identified it 5 areas. So when we talk about sustainable culture, we are talking about something that is universal, something that I will gain from, my children will gain from, our great-grandchildren and generation will gain from. And when we are, let me give you, because I always like to give a simple analogy to bring it home. When we talk of finance, how do we build a sustainable culture? And that's part of the things we are going to, when we, at the launch of the body, we begin to plan it. How can the financial policies, have a structured financial credit possibilities for these women in the community? So with the community collateral, she can get to the bank and take small loan with minimal interest to continue her SME business or banking business. How can we, for countries, because if you look at the summit, some of it is we are looking at the best practices. What are the countries in Africa, in the continent, have some good practices that can be replicated? How can, if a widow has a health insurance, that her child is sick, she goes into the hospital and gets, basic health care. That's a big financial support. Yeah. So these are how we are going to begin to, that's why the summit is for people that are experts in this field. Let's sit down. I don't think it's rocket science. If we that have experienced it and know how can it, using what is existing, both in developed and developing countries, structure things that even the government, public partnership, because the reality is that whether, from experience, because I've been in this field 10 years, NGO, there is need to change the practice now, because there's a repetition of action, which at the end of the day, we say, I will put it that the resources can be harnessed differently, and it will go wider. So that's the sustainability. How do we sustain it? How do we build it? At the end of the summit, and at the end of the launch, we begin to continue to extend further to these experts. First of all, when we finish, we want to get to the African Union. The African Union, we are asking them, widows deserve a seat. Nothing about us without us. Yeah. The donors, that's the discussion. I always say it, there is nothing that you want that you can't get a widow when you're discussing about widows issue. So if you are going to talk about, the African we want agenda, population of widow and the culture of a widow, the gender equality we are talking of, population of widow and the culture of widowhood in Africa. If we don't address it holistically, it is going to be, there's no research to bring out what this has caused or its impediment or its implication in that agenda we want to achieve and in that gender equality. So this is the discussion. Let's identify these women. We know their structure, we know our culture. How can we structure things across these 5 lines? Let me give you a typical example. In my country, it was only just 4 years ago or so that I heard about Ukeje versus Ukeje, which is a legal person that they said it took the woman 30 years to win the battle in the court.
Yeah, 30 years.
It's there, research it. The question I still ask, it's my place. I'm a widow. Unfortunately, it's my tribe. That's past. How applicable is it in the community? If it took me just some 4 years back to be informed about this, the question is, how many are informed? So these are part of how we want to getting the widows, having a pipeline of these widows, because the reality is that it's easier for information to get to her and go across further to more widows. Yeah. Because naturally, there's something that, whether you like it or not, once you're widowed and everything, your line, your friendship, your communication seems to be streamlined towards people like that. Yeah. And that's part of it.
Yeah. You know, ladies, I'm really enjoying this conversation, but we are almost out of time. So I think maybe if we can just hear from you, Madam Kahunga, maybe on a final note, you can talk to us about the conference. How do we attend this conference? And also, of course, contributions from your side. Who do we get in contact with? We know it's the 3rd, from the 3rd to the 5th of September. The venue, how much is going to cost us to be a part of this venue, if there is a cost. So yeah, please, those little details, please. Yeah.
Yes. The conference will start tomorrow, the 3rd of September, up to the 5th at Mövenpick Hotel in Windhoek. All are welcome. I just want to urge the viewers, the listeners, and the Namibian people at large that this conference is for everybody. It is for lawmakers. It is for those that are really concerned. It is for policymakers. It is for experts, so that we can come and look into discussion on how we are going to reshape and rebuild a sustainable culture for widows in Namibia and across the African continent. So your presence, if you are really concerned, because if you say I do, and you stick to the I do, the end result is becoming a widow or a widower. So please, let's be there. We have seen this. We have aunties, mamas, sisters, and mothers that went through this process, and we have an experience. But if you haven't burned, you don't know how the fire burns. So come and hear from the horse's mouth and see how we can reshape and rebuild a culture that is sustainable over a period of time, because this is going to stay with us for good.
Yeah.
It is an agenda that is not going to vanish.
Yeah.
It is going to be always relevant.
Definitely.
So it is at Mövenpick Hotel. If you have questions, you can also dial 081 12 99 666, and then you get more information. There is a link to register, and you can also come register at the venue. And the damage is very small. It's just 1,700 if you are coming to join the discussions. Please come and join and help us through the journey. We need you as in yesterday. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, madam.
Well, on a final note,
yes,
I invite you all to this conference. It's not, she has mentioned policymakers. We are calling on health experts. We are calling on finance experts. We are calling on even estate people. Let's come and sit down. How can we just put these people into the consideration of the planning? And always remember, my final word, widowhood is in the life cycle of every woman that says, I do. And a widow is somebody's mother, sister, daughter, wife, and auntie, and friend. So we are all involved one way or the other.
Definitely. So, ladies, thank you so much for being here. All the best. We're looking forward. I know it was quite a successful event, the conference that you had last year. I know it's going to be another good one. And yeah, all the best. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much. And various countries have arrived. I'm so happy.
Delegates here. The other delegates are here.
From, yes.
Yay.
We've got from Zimbabwe, Zambia, Tanzania. So I'm so excited.
Yeah. Nigeria.
In Nigeria also is here. So quite a number of countries are arriving. So please join us in this course. We need your help.
There you have it. There you have it, Namibia. As we heard here in studio with us is none other than Hope Nwakwesi, who's the founder of the Pan-African Widows Initiative, and then also Jane Kahunga, Kuhanga, I beg your pardon, thank you, who is from the founder of the Kuhanga Widows Association, talking to us. That is about the African Widows Conference starting, that is tomorrow until the 5th. As you've heard, there is a link to register. It is as little as $1,000 Namibian to participate. There's a lot that you will get from this conference, and I mean, this conference will focus, as we said, on widows facing legal, economic, educational, health issues, and also just how they're excluded, and why I think, Madam, you said nothing about us without us. So that is exactly what will be happening tomorrow.